Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles, the Friday podcast about your Kindle, books, and all things Amazon. I'm Len Edgerly. Today is June 15th, 2018. Greetings from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I'm putting the show together early Friday morning so we can beat the traffic to southern Maine. My daughter Rue is celebrating her 39th birthday this week, so there will be a family gathering at Ocean Park and the season's first frolicking on the beach with grandsons, plus 100 miles of sweet electric driving and autopilot in the new Tesla Model 3. I hope your summer is off to a great start and that you will enjoy this episode. My guest is Bradley Metrock, who is putting together an inspired reincarnation of Digital Book World, a conference that I have admired and attended when it was in New York City, but lately I've sensed it was fading in relevance. Bradley's Score Publishing purchased the event, and attendance looks as if it is going to triple when it opens October 2nd in Nashville. We talked of many things, including the biggest problem for books.
Everything with books orbits discoverability. That's the billion-dollar problem. That's the problem that Apple has never figured out. That's the problem that Amazon has sort of figured out.
Also this week, my surprisingly fantastic customer experience at Target, Rebranding Prime, a fond farewell to Mayday, and in Tech Tips, Alexa on your Apple Watch. First up in news, I always just assume that Amazon is in a class by itself in terms of customer service. I've clearly got a bias here after talking about the Kindle and Amazon every week for 10 years. But I have to say I was very impressed with an experience I had at Target recently. The situation was I had a guest coming, my friend Ben Beach, and we had a blow-up mattress because the house is a construction zone. We don't have really an operating guest room. And I had the blow-up mattress by Coleman, but I didn't have the pump that pumps the air into it. Since there's a lot going on here, I ended up working on this problem the morning of Ben's arrival, and I thought, well, maybe Target would have it. I found the item that I was looking for at the Watertown Target, which is just about a 10-minute drive from here, and it was a reasonable price. I think it was under $10, and it said that I could pick it up at the store. Now, I had gone online before the store opened at 8 o'clock. I purchased the order, and there was a way that I was able to set up a text message when it was in stock. I wondered, how soon am I going to get that text message? Am I really going to be able to get over there and get this pump in time for Ben's arrival? At 8:01, a minute after the store opened, I got a text message saying that my item was ready at Target. So I went over there, and when I went into the store, right immediately to the right was a great big customer service counter. It couldn't have been easier to find or get to. I said, I showed them the text number, and the woman went back onto a shelf, pulled out a brown paper bag, asked me to look into it and make sure that it was the item that I wanted, and I walked out of the store 2 minutes after I arrived with this item. That was pretty impressive. And so hats off to Target. And, in some situations, having a physical store clearly is convenient. And that, I think, helps explain why you see Amazon moving to Amazon bookstores and having more and more of a hybrid approach to online, which they clearly kind of own when it comes to customer service. But they're going to have to keep moving fast because Target is obviously not standing still. Next in news is a smart story in Business Insider by Dennis Green on June 10th. It points out that Amazon earlier this year quietly updated the logos for all of its Prime services, dropping the word Amazon and noting that Prime is now a brand in its own right. You can see the effect of this change in that the video service, which used to be called Amazon Prime Video, is now simply Prime Video, and Amazon Prime Now, the fast delivery, that's simply Prime Now. The color of the logo is a little different. It's all blue. It's kind of a calming blue. Green points out. And it signifies to shoppers at Amazon.com that this is something you're going to get free 2-day delivery on, the usual Prime meaning within Amazon.com. But now it's also something which is showing up in Whole Foods stores. It hasn't come to the stores here in the Boston area yet, but it that is in Denver, there'll be items marked by signs as you walk down the aisle with simply the blue Prime in it. If you're a Prime member, you're going to pay less for that than you would if you weren't a Prime member. He writes, Amazon is clearly signifying something of a separation between Prime and Amazon, and it perhaps wants customers to think of Prime as a service that offers benefits beyond the Amazon branded ecosystem. I wonder if some of this is pushback against Amazon as a brand. There's such a dichotomy because every consumer survey of Amazon is off the charts. Consumers are happy. They equate the name Amazon to good service, but you'll see in news items, we've seen it certainly in the publishing industry, people who think that the effect that Amazon has had on bookstores, say as a segment, and just kind of the fear of Amazon entering any industry, it's the bigness. It's the sense that Amazon is growing so large. And you've got the conflict over the Seattle tax, which the Seattle City Council has walked back. So Amazon's got a little bit of complexity to it as a name. Prime is just this good thing where you get things 2 days early, and in Whole Foods, you're going to start thinking anything with Prime is going to save me money if I'm a Prime member, and I suspect most of the people that shop at Whole Foods are Prime members. So it's a detaching of this service from the name of the company. Pretty smart, and I imagine there will be future uses of Prime in services, companies that Amazon hasn't yet acquired or initiatives that it hasn't yet made. Interesting development. Next, I really loved the Mayday service, which was amazing technical support on the first Fire tablets, where if you had a problem, you just tap the Mayday button and a live tech person showed up on your screen in a little square box, and you were talking to this person as they were helping you with the problem. It was odd because it didn't really add that much to be seeing the person, but it made it a more personal encounter. And I thought, I wonder if this is really sustainable. Well, it turns out it's not. And in an article that I found at nojitter.com by Dave Michaels, it says video-enabled customer service is as rare today as it was back in 2013. That's when it started. And he reports Amazon this month will end Mayday, and that was what it was called. I didn't realize it was introduced 5 years ago. I think that if you had, I think the HDX Fire tablet, it still had Mayday, and now you can initiate a screen sharing session if you've got a problem with your tablet. It's essentially Mayday without the video. An understandable savings in costs. These tech people had to be sitting up in front of screens that said Amazon, and an example of Amazon trying something but not getting stuck with it either. Apparently the benefits of it in terms of customer interaction compared with the costs of it, they ended up 5 years after initiating it, quietly bringing it to an end. I miss it. I loved Mayday, and it was good while it lasted. For the first tech tip, I want to tell you about a pretty clever app that I discovered for my Apple Watch. It's called Voice in a Can, and it puts Alexa on my Apple Watch. I read about this at Digital Trends, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes. It cost $1.99, I believe. You had to download this Voice in a Can app from the iTunes store and then make sure that it was running on the Apple Watch. I'm going to see if I can demonstrate to you how it works. I've got my Apple Watch pretty close to the Yeti microphone. It doesn't have much of a speaker, so I hope you can hear it. Hey Siri, start the Voice in a Can app. Now it says authenticating. There's a little pulsing going on here. And I'll see the Alexa logo showing up on the screen of the watch here. It takes quite a while for it to load in. This is the drawback of it. It's certainly not as fast as summoning Alexa from one of your devices in your home. Okay, now I can see it. What's the weather in Old Orchard Beach, Maine? That's saying thinking. More pulsing. It's about to speak.
Currently, in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, it's 53 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies. Today, you can expect intermittent clouds.
Voice in a can, $1.99 at the iTunes store. I assume it's also on Android. Another tech tip I received from Tom Semple about Kindle for iOS version 6.7. It has continuous scrolling. You can read your Kindle books on your iPhone or iPad, and you can select and highlight text. You can turn continuous scrolling on via settings and then easily turn it on and off from the AA menu, the font menu in your book. This makes continuous scrolling much more usable. Some features that don't work yet in continuous scrolling mode are you cannot see or set bookmarks, immersion reading, speak screen, pop-up footnotes, and page flip navigation. The update 5.9.6 for Kindle, 6th generation and or later, Tom shares with us. You can read with your own fonts. You can install your favorite fonts on your Kindle, choose them from the display settings, and this feature has been requested by many people for a long time. It's fun to play with. TrueType, TTF, OpenType, OTF, and TrueType Collection, TTC files are supported, and bold level can be adjusted just as with the Kindle's own fonts. Custom fonts do not work with books that use older Mobi format, pre-KF8. Good information from Tom Semple, as always. Thanks, Tom. In the show notes at thekindlechronicles.com, you'll also find an excellent piece about how to read PDFs on your Kindle that was sent to me by listener John Aga. Bradley Metrock is CEO of Score Publishing, which last year purchased Digital Book World. Score also owns VoiceFirst.fm, a podcast network devoted to voice-first technology. If you're interested in Alexa, Google Assistant, and the entire move toward voice control computing, I highly recommend his This Week in Voice podcast. It's a weekly podcast. He has great guests. The company also owns the Alexa Conference, which will be held next year on January 15th through 17th in Chattanooga. I will be at Digital Book World covering it with listener David Peach, and also will be a panelist, so I'm really looking forward to participating in the event. I caught up with Bradley by Skype on Wednesday, June 13th, and asked how planning for the event is going.
We are very much on pace to triple attendance of where this was.
And that would put it at about 1,000, or?
That's right.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of excitement around Digital Book World, especially now that Book Expo is over. The window is sort of wide open, and people were wondering sort of what's next. And the answer is Digital Book World is what's next. We're gratified by that. There's a lot of people saying good things about what we're doing. We don't take that for granted. That makes us happy. That's the point. You know? Mm-hmm. Exhibitor interest is extraordinarily high. We are on pace to somewhere between 8x to 10x the number of exhibitors that were at Digital Book World 2017.
Wow.
Now, yeah, that conference was in decline, and that's fine. But we did not anticipate being able to turn it around this quickly. And it's a testament to our team. It's a testament to the approach that we've taken. It's a testament to a shifting marketplace that is crying out for something different. Please give us something different with a publishing-oriented event. And also the rise of voice-first technology. You know, it's one of my favorite things to read. I will go back and reread articles that were published right when we acquired Digital Book World. Because if we ever feel that good about ourselves, it's a real easy way to just bring us down to the appropriate level of feeling good about ourselves. There was an article on the passive voice. You know, if you go to Google, search for passive voice Digital Book World, and you'll find this article. And this guy has some unkind things to say. And then in the comments, there are many people with unkind things to say.
This was about unkind comments about the purchase and thinking that, this is the end of Digital Book World?
Yeah, all of the above, and just not understanding that the world of digital books is bursting wide open. You've got changes that are being made within how we consume the typical content like the e-reader content. And I heard your interview with Kozlowski of Good E-Reader. That was a great interview, by the way.
Thanks.
There's all sorts of technology, that's continuing to move. It's quiet, but it's continuing to evolve and be iterated upon. Interactive content, interactive visual content, it's very hard to keep up with all the things going on there. There's a lot of different groups continuing to experiment, some with more of the success than others, in how to represent books visually and how to make them interactive visually. It's exciting to see, and there's a lot that's going on right there. But the real rise is in audio. That's becoming a theme of digital book world. Whether we like it or not, it's out of our control. It is rising at a rate that is hard to capture.
I'll break in here to note that Skype had a little burp on us. This is the one time during the interview that we had a problem with Skype. So there's a few words missing here as Bradley points out the three powerful areas of growth that all have to do with voice technology.
Audiobooks, podcasts, and voice assistant / smart speakers. From a content creator standpoint, you've got to have your arms around and be thinking strategically and critically about all three. It's not enough to just write your book in Microsoft Word and go to Create Space and hit publish, and that's it. No, you haven't even started. You've got to take your book into audiobook format. If you do not, it will not be accessible to a whole lot of potential readers. You've got to be cognizant of using podcasts as marketing. And I have a book coming out that will dovetail, this is news, by the way, that will dovetail digital book world in October called Podcasting as Marketing. And I am leading a workshop with the same name that is a pre-conference workshop that's open to a certain amount of attendees. It's a workshop I might give other places. It just depends. But I'm a strong believer, super strong believer in podcasting as marketing. That could involve taking audio content out of your audiobook and incorporating that into podcasting in different ways. It can just involve being proactive and getting on podcasts and being a guest. It can involve creating your own podcast, extending yourself and your thoughts and your content in that way. It can mean all sorts of things. It's a very important concept from everybody from Simon & Schuster and Penguin Random House all the way on down to the independent publisher. And then finally, voice assistants and smart speakers. Long gone is the idea that this is some sort of fad or gimmick. This is for real. This is a permanent shift in the way that human beings use computers. As a content creator, whoever's listening to this show, you've written a book, you've written a series of books, you've thought about writing a book, you work for some company that's written a book, whatever the case may be, you've got to be thinking about how that content extends into this new computing realm. Because if you're not thinking about that, then you're missing a lot of opportunities today, and you're going to miss every opportunity tomorrow. That is shaped up to be a major theme of Digital Book World 2018. Many exhibitors will be there attacking this from some which way. A lot of the program deals with this in different ways. And so, yeah, as Digital Book World has evolved and it's grown and the enthusiasm has grown, the energy, we've seen some themes emerge, and that's one of them.
You know, it's interesting to me because my experience of Alexa, the voice assistant, and audiobooks, they seem like very separate entities. They're both rising kind of at the same time, and they both have to do with voice, with listening as opposed to reading content. And then you tie in podcasts. I know that they're rising. And you see those linked because voice itself is rising as the new way that we communicate. It kind of a really epical transition from taking information in through our eyes to taking it through our ears.
Yes, I do. And I guess that's the short answer. The longer answer is yes, I do. And the reasons for that can probably just be best illustrated by example. Let's say that you've written a book about podcasting and you want somebody to read that. Okay, so what are you going to do? You're an independent publisher. You haven't inked a $100,000 advance deal with big publisher du jour. You're doing this thing on your own, as so many wisely do today. So what are you going to do? You're going to publish the book. Okay, so it's on Amazon. That's fantastic. All right, now what? Now you got to think about the audiobook. Are you going to do it yourself? You're going to hire a narrator. Okay, so you make that decision. You produce the audiobook. And for many people, I think also wisely, they choose to narrate it themselves, allows the opportunity to provide off-the-cuff additional content, bonus content that can justify previous readers to consume the content again, adds another dimension to it for everybody else. Now what? There's a whole lot of people out there for whom podcasting is directly substituting these days for many consumers for audiobooks. Why? Well, how about because they're the exact same thing? They're just audio of somebody talking to you, okay? And in an audiobook, somebody is telling a story. In a podcast, the story is being told, and it involves people talking to one another. Either way, that content is sisters of each other. And so as a content creator, as an author, you have to be cognizant of, you've got to find a way, and this can look differently for different people. I'm not going to say there's one size fits all, because that's wrong, but you've got to find a way to get into, get you, yourself, your content out of just the audiobook realm into the podcasting realm. And I think that's a pretty well understood premise for most people at this point. What's less understood is the importance of the voice assistant and smart speaker ecosystem and how that ties in to the other two. And I'll give you an example. Alexa, I want to read a book about podcasting. What should I read? That's happening right now, and it will happen a lot in the future. What book is it going to choose? Are you just going to hope that it's yours? Or are you going to be reading and studying up a little bit on this ecosystem to try to position yourself that way? Amazon's ecosystem will arbitrarily and with no input from you, the author, the content creator, will either decide, based on a query like that, to send traffic your way or not. And voice search is a big topic right now, and this only touches on one of the answers to this question, but it's the one I'll start with. If you're not in the ecosystem, if you're not thinking about these things, you have no chance. So you might as well not even bother thinking about it. But the fact remains that, Alexa, play me a podcast related to the Kindle and publishing. Alexa, download me a book to my device about farming. Alexa, I was looking at a book on Amazon the other day about selecting a school system for my child. Whatever book that was, download it to my Kindle, please.
Because Alexa knows.
Yeah, Alexa. And I could just as easily be saying Google Assistant. Siri eventually will catch up. Cortana, Bixby, some of these others. Everybody's playing catch up to Amazon. Plus, Amazon is right there in the publishing ecosystem. That's the one you need to be watching. If you're listening to this, and if you're listening to a show called Kindle Chronicles, I would imagine that you probably feel that way. Alexa, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and somebody was talking about digital book world, and they were talking about podcasting, and I want to download a book about podcasting. Download me one. I'm talking download me one. I'm not saying you could just as easily say, Alexa, show me a list of options. Mm-hmm. Okay, done. Alexa, and if it's just an audio, just the Echo, the smart speaker, it'll read it to you. If it's a multimodal device like the Show or like the Spot or some of these others, it'll show you a list visually. Conversely, same thing for books. If you've got an Echo Show sitting there, it'll show you some sort of representation of the book there while it reads it out loud to you, and you could customize that experience however you want. These are the things you got to be thinking about. The future, it comes down to discoverability. Everything with books orbits discoverability. That's the billion-dollar problem. That's the problem that Apple has never figured out. That's the problem that Amazon has sort of figured out. That's the problem that every independent author, all the way up to Penguin Random House. Penguin Random House pays a lot of people a lot of money to tackle that problem, and they brute force it. Not everybody can do that. In the age of AI, in the age of machine learning, which, keep in mind, voice assistants, smart speakers, that is your front door to artificial intelligence and machine learning. These things are all tied together. They're not islands. Everything is connected. that we're talking about here. The future of discoverability of books is directly, and I mean 100% reliant upon voice assistants and smart speakers. You've got the audio content anyway. You produce an audiobook, you got audio content. You go on someone's show, you got audio content. You do your own show, you got audio content. You can direct people through social media and all the sort of existing ways with that, but there's other things to be thinking about, and whether it's flash briefings, whether it's creating an Alexa skill, whether it's tying it into somebody else's Alexa skill, this is just the beginning of stepping toes into the baby pool before we go into the ocean of what the future will be like. And I'm not advocating, rush out and necessarily create an Alexa skill. I think for some people that's a very good thing to do. There's great tools out there, Alexa skills blueprints and Storyline, among others, that can allow you to create Alexa skills without knowing how to code. And I would encourage people listening to this show to check those out. Where everything starts is just being aware of what's going on, and the world is changing around you. That's what Digital Book World's about. You'll come there to be aware and be made aware, and you'll leave aware. So that's the first step, is just to do a little bit of homework and start to get your hands around mentally where we're going.
From the point of view of a reader or someone who wants to discover the books as opposed to the author who's trying to get discovered, just those examples you gave of Alexa queries, is that relatively far away that you could have sort of a conversational approach to Alexa and say, hey, that thing I checked on Amazon the other day, can you find me something like it? Is that 5 years away, or are there already skills that you can do that with in Alexa that are much more casual, natural speech than what's the weather and the things that most people are doing with Alexa?
Sure, and that's a great question. So with Google Assistant beat Amazon to this punch, but only slightly. Google Assistant has continuity over a number of steps. There's some continuity there. If I refer to something with a pronoun, let's say that I said, Alexa, what's the weather in Chicago like on Saturday? 76 and sunny. Alexa, what's the weather in Atlanta on the same day?
Alexa could already do that, right? Because if you do a setting, the blue ring stays and you can ask a follow-up question.
Yes, that's right. So Amazon just rolled out follow-up mode, and that's the type of thing that we're just now getting. And it's just those baby steps. Google Assistant's got the same baby steps, maybe a little bit further. There's actually a company out there called SoundHound, which just completed a $100 million funding round that a lot of people in this space are aware of. And they may very well be at Digital Book World. We'll have to see. They'll certainly be at the Alexa conference, which we'll be doing in January as a sponsor. They have total continuity. It remembers everything and can refer back in the sort of way that we're talking about. But these things take time, and these systems, especially within Amazon, they sit on islands, and they've got to be connected together. And it takes a little bit of time, even at the breakneck speed that Amazon is moving at. You asked me how long do I think it's going to take. I think we're looking at a time horizon of 1 to 2 years when somebody can ask the question, Alexa, does Tom Clancy have a new book out? Well, why, yes. And you don't have it in your collection. You haven't purchased this yet. But yes, Tom Clancy came out with a new book in April. Would you like to download it? Yeah. Yes. And also there's synergy, too, with podcasts that we haven't yet seen. And part of it's because Apple has, even though Apple's led the way with podcasts, they've been behind on the voice front. I anticipate that Amazon and Google both. Google has been explicit. Google is developing a podcast app right now. And they've got designs on that. Amazon, trust me, is doing the same thing, because the next step is for somebody listening to this show, Alexa, who was that? Because they're going to use Alexa to listen to your show, Len. Alexa, play me in fact, as of right this moment, you can say, Alexa, play This Week in Voice. And it will play the most recent episode of that. So Alexa will be the vehicle for delivering your content with the Kindle Chronicles. Alexa, stop. Alexa, who am I listening to right now?
Wow.
So and so. Alexa, they just mentioned a book on the show. Can you show me that book? Boom, comes up on the Echo Show or on your Kindle, which is Alexa enabled, or if it's not a screen in front of you, it'll tell you about it. Alexa, let's download that. Download that. I want that ready to read tonight.
That's fascinating. So the podcasting becomes part of a kind of another room where all this is happening. And it started out as such an autonomous way of communicating with people, but as these other rivers start flowing into the Mississippi of voice, you get them all working together.
You do, and podcasting is really, it's that discoverability blue ocean, because everybody's having a podcast about everything these days. Not you. You were early. You were a pioneer. Yeah. You got a lot of also-rans like us with Voice First FM creating stuff recently. But podcasts. You know how many podcasts? I just saw this yesterday. You know how many podcasts are being added to Apple Podcasts a day?
No.
Just guess.
500.
1,000.
Good Lord. A day.
1,000 a day. 1,000 a day, at least.
Yeah.
That's that's the average right as of right now, or when they ran the numbers maybe a month ago. 1,000 podcasts are being added to Apple Podcasts a day. People are consuming that. They're very popular, and they're going the information springing out of podcasts will direct people to any number of sources. Your voice assistant, your smart speaker is going to be the conductor for that, saying go over here, go over there, or wherever. So yeah, that's the future is not far away.
That's pretty exciting. Now, Amazon, I think, sent Russ Grandinetti to Digital Book World once when I was there, but a lot of years there was nobody there on the program. I think other people from Amazon might have attended. But on your first version of the conference, you've got Amazon there in a pretty big way. What exactly are they going to be doing?
So all we have announced right now is that Amazon, and it's the Alexa team's involvement, Amazon will be leading a pre-conference workshop on October 1st on how to build Alexa skills aimed specifically at authors and publishers. So you work for Simon & Schuster, you work for yourself, that's a good avenue to hear straight from the source on what to be thinking about as you build an Alexa skill. By the way, Alexa skill is just the vernacular for an Alexa application. Mm-hmm. So an Alexa skill, you can learn about that there. Amazon will also have a spot within one of our breakout tracks. They are the sponsor of the New Media breakout track. It's New Media Book World presented by Amazon. And they will have a speaker as part of that, David Zbitsky, who's actually the head of worldwide evangelism for Alexa, talking about Alexa in publishing. And that's going to be pretty spectacular. There's other things, and you alluded to some of them in your questions. There's other things in the works. That is all that we have announced so far. How
about, will they have a booth in the exhibit hall?
That's all we've announced so far.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Walt Mossberg. I love Walt Mossberg. I've always called him Uncle Walt for some reason. He feels like a member of my family. But when you got him booked, he's retired, but I'm sure he's following this stuff very actively. And what did you ask him to speak about as in that keynote slot at the opening of the conference?
I thought Walt Mossberg was a perfect fit. When I found out that he's writing a book about sort of the convergence of different types of technology and the leaders that have led that over our lifetime, publishing is changing very rapidly. And everybody says that, right? Like that's a lead sentence on every article you read. But it's true. And Digital Book World's at the forefront of that. We felt like for this initial conference that we are running, the most important thing for somebody to take away from Digital Book World is the insights that somebody would have who has lived through different technological revolutions and who has paid close enough attention to document those closely, because that is precisely what we are going through right now. We couldn't have gone to a lab and cooked up a better keynote speaker than Walt Mossberg to deliver this. And the fact that he's writing a book that talks about this that'll come out, early next year makes it even better. So the thoughts and the insights that Walt will bring to the table will be very valuable, sort of high-level thoughts for everybody who is collectively having to think about how everything going on in this high velocity, tons of change world that we live in, how all this stuff is going to come together. And how do I not get overwhelmed? How does this blue ocean of opportunity not just blow me out to sea and I drown? How do I take concrete steps? What did that look like when Steve Jobs did it? What did that look like when, or Wozniak or the people with Amazon, Bezos or whoever? Over time, what have these steps looked like, and how have people who have carved out their niche in this evolving world, what does that look like too? Mm-hmm. I think that Walt will be able to shed a lot of light on that, and will be just a home run within the context of the show. The show is going to have all these different, very interesting companies doing all these sorts of interesting things. Large companies, small companies, companies on the bleeding edge and the vanguard, older companies who are a little bit more conservative, who are figuring things out and as interested in all this as everybody else. Everybody can come together for this, a true diversity, and get something out of it and walk away with the insights that you're going to need to power that next year for you and get you into 2019. So, Mossberg is a key fit, and we did have him early. We saw the positioning for that, and it's going to be a home run.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you were reading the feedback surveys from all of the past digital book worlds, you got the idea that there needed to be more diversity in terms of size of companies, and that you really wanted to get big tech companies involved. Obviously, Amazon is a good example. Have you had some other successes of major companies that will have a presence at the show that will kind of fill in that missing piece that you noticed from the surveys?
Sure. So some that we have announced are Intel. Intel is part of the program. Intel has an internal publication called IQ Magazine that has a circulation and a publishing process that rivals anything that anybody's doing. They will be there speaking about that as part of a panel. On that same panel will be Southwest Airlines. So Southwest Airlines has this whole thing called Southwest Airlines University. They publish more content, print, digitally, than many small to mid-sized publishers do. They'll be there sharing those insights as well. There's some other examples that we're right on the cusp of having, maybe in the next week or two, that sort of fit that mold. Also, those are just sort of big companies. Intel is Silicon Valley. Southwest Airlines is just a large company. There's some other things that we're working on now that will help fill in the gaps there. But, having Intel and having Amazon alongside a Simon & Schuster, alongside a Penguin Random House, where else are you going to get that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where else are you ever going to see that? That's what's going to be special about this. It's come together well. It's far from the last shoe to drop. We still have 110 days.
That's right.
Thank you, Alexa, for telling us that. We're going to use every one of them, because we are going to overwhelm people with what we are delivering for Digital Book World 2018. That's not some sort of hyperbole. That is the absolute truth. And for people who attend, we want it to be very obvious that this thing, your thought will be, how did I ever contemplate not attending that?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going after.
It reminds me of how I feel about South by Southwest, which amazes me that it continues to hit this sense that it's reinventing itself almost every year. And you've said conferences have to do that, otherwise they just wither away. They catch a wave, and the wave, the next wave comes.
Sure.
But that's certainly the right goal. And I thought an interesting addition to the program, and it's prominently toward the end, you've got Pamela Paul, the editor of the New York Times Book Review.
Yes.
How did you see her, what she brings to this event, fitting into all the rest of it that you've sketched out?
So a number of ways, not the least of which is just the data component. So the New York Times Book Review is a heavily data-driven operation. First of all, they're producing data. They're publishing it. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking just about the way that they conduct themselves, the way that they're analyzing the publishing industry, the way that they're analyzing the trends going on, and the type of thing that goes into decisions such as the recent one to start a chart for audiobooks. A lot of data went into that, a lot of analysis, a lot of decision-making, as you would expect. That wasn't an off-the-cuff thing at all. And I just thought somebody at that level being able to share her views on the publishing industry, the machinations of that, the data she's seeing and has access to, and what she thinks the future trends are. I just thought that would be very, very valuable no matter who you're at, what you're doing, what sector you're in.
Yeah, and she's I've had her on the show, I think, a couple of times. She's very articulate, and she has a very specific job, but she's thinking about the kinds of topics that everyone at that conference is going to be thinking about. So I think it's kind of a brilliant choice.
Well, we hope so. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Last question. I know you're a careful reader. You don't have as much time to read books as you probably wish you did, but what's a book that you finished recently, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Probably the one that sticks out the most is WTF, What's the Future, and Why It's Up to Us.
That's Tim O'Reilly?
By Tim O'Reilly, yeah. Very insightful sort of gaze into the future, talking about some previous trends, just to sort of provide the basis for asserting that the future is not going to be human beings at the beck and call of machines. The future is a human-centered future. People worry all the time about technology replacing my job, technology replacing my company, technology replacing the entire industry. And people have worried about that since the dawn of man. Yeah. And sometimes they've been more right than others, but in general, they've been wrong every time. And human beings have remained employed. They've remained productive. They've remained value added to the planet and to our society and to our collective growth. And it's just an interesting view that he has. I've always found him an interesting person. If you're thinking about the future, if you are looking for something good to read, that's a good choice.
Well, I know you looked at trying to purchase his conference, and then you ended up purchasing Digital Book World. Do you think if
we sure did
had it to do over again, you just would have gone straight for Digital Book World?
Oh, not at all. Yeah, we went through a process. I'm glad we went through it. Tools of Change, the soul of Tools of Change is present in Digital Book World today. For people who attended Tools of Change by O'Reilly in the past, you're going to like what you see out of Digital Book World. I can assure you of that, because both those conferences sort of were a yin and yang to each other in many ways while they existed together. And all of that is sort of brought under the same roof here. And there's a lot of aspects to Tools of Change that I greatly respect, and that's why we tried to acquire it first. But make no mistake, Digital Book World fits the bill as well. That's just fine as a vehicle for what we want to do. What both conferences were trying to do, and the same sort of thought processes that they went through, and the same sort of constituencies, all of that is under one roof with Digital Book World now, and we're proud. We're proud of that. We're proud to honor what Tools of Change brought to the table with what we're doing. That's very much positive in our mind.
I have been speaking with Bradley Metrock, CEO of Score Publishing, which will present Digital Book World October 2nd through 4th, also workshops the day before in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks very much, Bradley.
Len, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
If you listen to the podcast using the show notes page, thekindlechronicles.com, you'll notice a big change in the design this week. That's thanks to great work by Preston and Lindsay at Flyte New Media in Portland, Maine. They've been helping me to recreate the site using Libsyn's template. I like the look of it, but the big advantage is it's going to save me nearly an hour of production time each week, and it will lower my hosting expenses. I'd love to hear what you think of it. Just drop me an email at podchronicles@gmail.com. I had a consult with Rich Brooks, who is the president and founder of Flyte, about how to grow the audience. Came up with one change, which you probably noticed, and I'd also like to hear what you think about that. the uptick in my Amazon Associates commissions enabled me to invest in this update to the show's presence. So thank you for starting your Amazon shopping at that ad, which you'll see is very big on the new design. That's the one source of income for the show, because I really prefer not having any ads on it. This is Len Edgerly for the Kindle Chronicles in Cambridge, Mass. Thanks very much for listening.